Hello everybody, my name is Fortefyre and welcome to episode 6 of Fortefyre's Fyreside Chats. Today we are playing Final Fantasy. Lord have mercy, an RPG. That's right, an RPG, something that has not been played on this channel yet. Disclaimer, I want to kind of make some rules about this particular video. A, I'm sick as a dog. I've been sick since last Sunday. I was hoping I'd get better, but it's been a continued fight. And B, because this is an RPG, in the section where I describe the actual storyline and the premise and the recorded videos, I'm not going to focus on the actual storyline because it ultimately would take away from the entirety of the game. It's a little bit different from Sonic the Hedgehog where I can play from point A to point B, and the only thing that's different is the final boss battle and the ending. Or say sports games where I just play until it naturally terminates. Okay, let's get down to it. So Final Fantasy is an RPG. I never really played many RPGs growing up at all. I kind of stayed in the whole action-adventure genre because for me that was something I could relate with. My first game system that I remember growing up adamantly was the Nintendo 64. And most of my games were limited to Mario Kart, Mario Party, Super Mario 64, and the most important to me was Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Now, I don't consider these RPGs, I consider these action-adventures. However, Shigeru Miyamoto considers the original Legend of Zelda on the NES as a role-playing game because you are taking a role and playing said role. Outside of that, I maybe had Extreme G Racing, I had Glover, I had all these action-adventure games. I never touched an RPG. Fast forward to where Steam became relevant in my life and I had a game called The Witcher. Now, the only reason I played The Witcher was to see boobies. I was a hormonal child. And to be honest, I wasn't really a big fan of it because I didn't like how I had to put so much time into creating a character. I just wanted to go out, kill shit, and beat the game. That's what you did in Fear. That's what you did in Zelda. It was very linear, and I love that. Twilight Princess is a perfect example of this because you just go. One RPG I remember playing a demo of was one of the Dragon Quest games, and it was in PlayStation Magazine's demo disc, maybe in 2007 or 2008. It's probably Dragon Quest 7, maybe Dragon Quest 8. No, that would have been 2005, but whatever, you get the picture. So, I started collecting a lot of games, and I came across a game called Dragon Age, and I really enjoyed it. That would branch into playing games like Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Academy, and many other games where you actually had a character, there was an end goal, and you were able to manipulate the armor, the weapons, and the abilities and power-ups of the main character you were portraying. When I was PCS to Korea in 2013, I downloaded Final Fantasy onto my iPhone. At the time, the iPhone was really leading the industry when it came to awesome games on the phone from their marketplace. Google didn't have it at that time. Granted, now they do. Back then, not so much. So I played Final Fantasy 1, and it took me 4 months to beat. And it wasn't because I was playing it hit or miss. It's because it's a long damn game. Halfway through my tour, I beat it, and I downloaded Final Fantasy 2. And that, too, took me about 4 months. But it was an experience. It was awesome. Because I knew I was playing a game from the late 80s, and I had beaten it. And that kind of expanded my mind to what exactly RPGs were. They were totally different from action adventures. They were different from shooters. They were different from, strategy and RTS. They were their own unique genre that you had to actually put time and investment into. It was at this time I started playing World of Warcraft, and it took all my time. I'm talking about every single day of every single month of every single year, I was playing World of Warcraft. And at one point I just said, I'm done. I quit. I haven't played it since. But enough about me. Let's go back to 1987 and talk about when Final Fantasy came out. So before the 80s, the only type of RPG games that you had were pen and paper. And people were going insane over it. They loved it. They loved the concept of creating their own character on a sheet of paper and playing and rolling the random die and seeing how everything panned out. As an adult, I appreciate that now. But back then, it kind of had its own little subculture. Insert the Atari 2600 in a game called Dragon Stomper. Much like almost everything on the Atari, you had to have a very big imagination to have a game represent anything. Little blips would represent something from weapons to enemies, but it was your imagination that determined exactly how you felt about the game and what your experience was. Fast forward to the late 80s, and games like Ultima and Wizardry were taken off. People loved it. They were pulling them off the shelves. They had the ability to play an RPG on their TV. Get out of here. And after Dragon Stomper, the 80s turned into an RPG frenzy thanks to Ultima and Wizardry. Wizardry 1, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, came out in 1981. They had 2 more games that came out in 82 and 83. These games set the framework of expectations for the RPG genre. In Japan, this movement was not really popular. As a matter of fact, there was a guy by the name of Hironobu Sakaguchi who worked in a company by the name of Square, see where I'm going with this, who proposed the idea of an RPG to his developers. They said no. And he said, please. And they said no. And then the competition, Enix, made a game called Dragon Quest, localized as Dragon Warrior in the United States. That was a commercial success. And Square said, okay, fuck those guys. Let's make a game. Now everybody knows the whole story behind the naming of Final Fantasy. Supposedly, the company was going under. They wanted to make a game that would be their last one. The leaders of Square said, we honestly don't give a shit what the name of the game is, just make it FF, something FF. Well, they wanted to name the game Fighting Fantasy, but there was already a game that had that name, so copyright reasons they needed to change it. Enter Final Fantasy, and the rest is history. Square and Enix would go on to be rivals for years. Every single time that Square would release a game, Enix would release a game of equal caliber, if not better. Enix would release Dragon Warrior, Square would release Final Fantasy. And this would go on forever. Square would release Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Secret of Mana, Xenogears, The Romancing Saga, and the Super Mario RPG. They'd release Vagrant Story, Front Mission, Threads of Fate, The Bouncer, Saga Frontier, Treasure Hunter G, Bahamut's Lagoon, and even Seiken Densetsu. And in return, Enix would release games like Dragon Quest, Valkyrie Profile, Illusion of Gaia, one of my favorite games, Star Ocean, Terranigma, The Seventh Saga, Paladin's Quest, and in 2003, they finally buried the hatchet competitively and merged to form what we know as Square Enix. All your contemporary Final Fantasy games are Square Enix. Bravely Default, I've never played it, looks kind of silly. Kingdom Hearts, and one of the most famous games that they've made right now, Nier Automata, well, the entire Nier series as a whole. Let's go back to Final Fantasy 1. I'm sorry, I get really distracted by the success of people. Final Fantasy 1 had many releases and re-releases. The version I played was the Dawn of Souls edition, which was a Game Boy Advance version. But however, I do own the PSP version, as well as the dual CD that has Final Fantasy 1 and 2. I'm sure at some point I'll buy the Game Boy game. But that's enough out of me. Let's go ahead and look at the card. Alright, so let's take a look at my copy of Final Fantasy on the Nintendo. Alright, so pretty beautiful, right? This is awesome artwork. The logo's tight, the artwork is phenomenal. This absolutely captures everything that the video game is about, the entire fantasy element. Very simple, but very drawn out, and that's nice. My cart has some aesthetic damage because somebody probably threw it across the room after having to deal with it, but it looks like they actually tried to fix it with like epoxy or something. These are one of those games that have the game pack in the back. If you ever see this gold logo, this gold plate, you got to make sure that you're careful when you turn off the game. If you turn off the game just by pushing the power button, you run a potential risk for deleting everything on the cartridge. So follow the rules in the back by holding down reset and then pushing power at the same time to avoid that. Cool. So just for shits and giggles, I'm going to show you some of the other versions too. So this is the one that's for the PSP, and this is, again, excessively artistic. I expect nothing less from Square Enix, but this is the 20th anniversary PSP game that I have. It doesn't work at all, which pissed me off because I paid a lot of money for this. I think maybe 20 bucks. Come on. And yeah, it's just got modern graphics. Same kind of artwork though. They've always stuck to that. And then I have Final Fantasy Origins, which is the PlayStation 1. I have the Greatest Hits version. I got this for $10, which was a steal. This does work, and it's got Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2. This guy here is Firion. He's one of the main characters for Final Fantasy 2, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point, especially if somebody chooses it again. Very simple artwork, like I said before. Whenever we actually cover it, maybe in a future episode, I'll go back and I'll read everything on the back, but the only thing that matters right now is this one. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Alright, so let's look at the game. I don't want to get into massive detail about telling you the storyline, the synopsis, because I don't want to ruin the effect of the game. I don't want to ruin the storyline, I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm just going to give a very basic synopsis of the game that actually comes from the manual itself, which I don't own, but I downloaded so that it can be relayed to y'all. So Final Fantasy takes place in a world that has 3 continents. These continents are elementally powered by 4 orbs. These orbs represent the 4 natural elements: water, earth, wind, and fire. Now, 400 years prior to the game, there's this race called the Lefanish. They live in a floating continent and have the power of wind at their disposal. They use it to create airships, and they use it for their everyday life. Each of the orbs, which are assigned to these elemental powers, have light within it, hence the light warriors that you play during the game. So the wind orb loses its light, and the continent that the Lefanish live on starts to just die. 200 years later, after the wind orb goes dark, the water orb goes dark, and an entire shrine and a big civilization gets sunk by massive storms. Soon after that, the earth orb dies, causing vegetation and pretty much the entire continent to just shrivel up. And then the fire orb goes out, leading to massive wildfires. So the world that this game takes place on is just going through some bad shit. And guess who's in charge of saving the world? 4 orphans that just happen to be in the right place at the right time. That's it. So from start to finish, you are basically going from point A to point B to relight all of the orbs and fight all of the elemental fiends who are protecting these orbs from you, ironically. And after that, peace comes back to the world and everybody can wipe their ass tonight. Let's talk about some of the elements of the game without ruining the story. Alright, so whenever you start up the game, there's no title screen at all. It's just 1987 Square, 1990 Nintendo, and you have an option to continue or choose a new game. For me, I obviously pick new game. I don't know who was previously playing. If you're wondering, the respawn rate at the bottom is basically your text message speed, and since this game is really heavy on event boxes such as telling you how much damage you took or gave to the enemy, as well as status effects and dialogue, having a respawn rate that's really high is really nice and keeps some of the monotony down. Alright, when the game pulls up, you have the option to create your classes, your team loadout. In this case, you have a fighter, a thief, a black belt, and then the 3 mages, so the red, white, and black mage, each of them having their own specific abilities. I don't really want to go into detail about what each of them are capable of, but my loadout is rather simple. I have a warrior, I have a black belt, I have a red mage, and a white mage. I know this because I played the game and I know how the end game pans out, so I wanted to have a heavy hitter, I wanted a secondary heavy hitter, and then somebody who could work with both light and dark magic, which is why I chose the red mage, because he can also deal some heavy damage out, and I have my white mage who I can always count on to be my healer. So whenever you start the game, you're pretty much just thrown out into the overworld of whatever the name of this continent is. You have the choice of exploring and ultimately dying, or you could walk straight up to your first objective, which is Cornelia's castle. You walk up and you talk to the king, and the king tells you, "Light warriors, just as Lucan's prophecy, Garl and his kidnapped..." What? Oh, so you walk up to the king, and the king says, "Light warriors, just as in Lucan's prophecy, Garland has kidnapped the princess, please help her." The princess is going to be obviously our first objective. If I'm looking at the game from the first 10 minutes, we go and we save the princess. The princess is with Garland, who becomes a very important character piece in the later portion of the game, but like I said, I don't want to ruin everything. And the 4 big bosses you're going to fight in the game, obviously before the storyline becomes interesting and you fight the one mega end boss, are the 4 fiends, each of which were assigned by the end boss to protect the elemental orbs. In this case, you have Kraken, who is the fiend of water, Lich, who is the fiend of earth, Marlith, the fiend of fire, and Tiamat, the fiend of wind, who is probably one of the most difficult ones. And over the course of the game, you're going to be fighting them twice, so be ready, level up, and get your gear where it needs to be. And by gearing up, I mean grinding. Grinding is probably the absolute worst part of this game. It will easily take you 2 hours just to get 1 level. So as a whole, when I played this game the first time, to get to level 10 took me about 3 days, because I didn't want to sit down and play this game non-stop for 10 hours. It gets so monotonous. Walking through the forest, finding someone to fight, hitting them in the face, getting maybe like 20 XP, and then continuing the process. Rinse, wash, repeat. It gets really tiring. Let's get back to the game. So once you exit the castle, you can pretty much go check out the city of Cornelia. And every city pretty much has the same layout. You have a few NPCs that actually matter in terms of talking to you. You have a weapon shop, you have an armor shop, you have a supply store, which really matters. You're going to want those heals, those pures, and those tents. Pure is actually an antidote, which for the first dungeon has a lot of poisonous creatures in it, so make sure you stack up on those pures. In addition to these simple shops, you'll also find a light and dark magic store, as well as an inn. Now that we've got everything that we want, let's go out and walk through the forest and try to kill some baddies and get some XP. Alright, this is fun. Let's just keep walking. Nothing yet. Alright. We're still just walking. I can't walk behind the castle because the castle apparently reaches Okay, here we go. Jesus Christ! Right off the bat, 6 enemies? My bad, 5? I can't count. I'm so scared by these imps. Why am I not doing a lot of damage? That's weird. Oh, great. Fail died. I wonder how I'm gonna revive him. I guess we'll just walk through the city and go to an inn, right? Maybe an inn will save him? Did it not save my friend? Alright, maybe there's another building that will do it for me. Nope, that's a light magic store. And a dark magic store. Maybe to the right? Oh, a heart. Maybe this is like a sanctuary or something. Oh, cool. 40 gold to revive my companion? At this rate, I might as well go find all the Dragon Balls. Jeez, now I have 7 gold left. Oh, and wonderful, he's also only got 1 HP. Are you kidding me? I didn't equip any of my weapons, no wonder. Another huge pet peeve of mine already in this game is that if you have your team members set to attack one player, and say for example, just say that I have everybody attacking that one enemy. Basically, the rest of my characters will attempt to attack an enemy that's no longer there, and instead of just shifting to the next enemy, which happens in the later games, I now have to wait until next turn because all of my attacks are ineffective. What the fuck? At this point, I've been playing the game for 50 minutes. This is almost an hour. I am only level 3. Are you kidding me? Well, might as well enter the castle and start the story. An hour, 12 minutes, 19 seconds. I decided maybe it's time to actually fight the boss. So let's walk up to Garland here and give him a talking to. No one touches my princess, light warriors! You impertinent fools. I, Garland, will knock you all down. So now we're gonna fight Garland. This is the first boss of the game. Hour 12 into the game, after I've been grinding incessantly to get my levels. And as you can see, the fight's actually not going too bad for me. He hits me, and he does a little bit of damage, but unlike future Final Fantasy games, he only does 1 turn worth of damage. A lot of the bosses in the future games will do 2 turns, which is really cheap. But if you keep focusing on him, he really is not a tough or difficult boss at all, as long as you are the right level. If you try to go in bare minimum level 1, you're probably going to die. Scratch that, you definitely will die. And if you lose, you better have a save point. But look at that, we leveled up to level 4 after beating the boss. An hour 13 in the game, we are only level 4. I at least need to be level 6 before I move to the next area, Provoca. Party hard. How much XP did I get? Not enough, 6. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw this, I thought I got ground zeroed because they said the credits. And I was like, well, I guess it's the prequel to the sequel. But it's actually this clever little intro. So you walk into the Provoca continent, which is where the next part of the game is going to take place. And that's pretty much it. The further down the line you go, the more expensive your spells are going to cost, the more expensive your armor and your weapons are going to become. And the guidance for the game ultimately lies with taking your time and talking to NPCs. The next part of the game, you have to go down to a city to the east and fight a band of pirates. They give you a ship, and that ship allows you to go to another city where their prince is in deep slumber. In order to awaken from the slumber, you need the herb. I thought it was marijuana whenever they first said it. Maybe. And then you go and you find this herb inside of a castle that has a dark elf king that you defeat. You go wake up the elf prince, and he gives you a key to get you into the earth shrine, and that's whenever you fight your first fiend, Lich. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole story because after that is whenever things get excessively interesting. And I strongly recommend you play for yourself, but maybe play the Dawn of Souls edition. Updated graphics, kind of easier of a game. I don't know, I never really noticed the difference. It took me forever to grind the level that I could beat the final boss, Chaos. And that's as much as I'm going to talk about the game today. So let's look at some pro tips. Pro tips, Final Fantasy. Pro tips, Final Fantasy. Number 1, be extremely patient. You're going to grind so much to get from point A to point B. You're going to spend so much time going and fighting enemies, then going and buying some armor, then going back and fighting some enemies, then going to an inn, then using potions that you're going to run out of eventually, going back, grinding for more money, grinding for levels. This game has a really annoying mechanic as well too, so you know if you've gone too far from where you should have gone, because the enemies will jump from easy peasy little enemies that can maybe be killed in like 2 hits to people who will kick your shit in with their finger. And if you haven't saved, good luck, you're starting from square one. That'll cheat you from going into the forest. Pro tip 2. Don't play the old game unless you are dead set on some sort of nostalgia factor. Go on eBay, buy the 1 and 2 combo. The graphics are more aesthetically pleasing, the music was completely reworked, everything is just simply perfect about the PlayStation remake of the game. So pro tip number 3 is just enjoy the atmosphere of this game. This game isn't meant to be beaten in an hour, it's meant to have time invested into it. It's supposed to be an experience. So have that mindset whenever you're playing the game, or else you're going to be really disappointed. Alright, let's rate the game. Card. The card art is phenomenal. Okay, I can always respect companies that actually give a damn about what they're slapping on the front of a card. You really don't see that with a lot of the sports games that are put out during that era. 8 out of 10. Gameplay. Gameplay is phenomenal. It's really smooth. The problem is the amount of grinding, which that goes without saying. It's an RPG game. It's not Sonic the Hedgehog. 9 out of 10. Music. The music is perfect. Every single moment of every single second of this game, there's music that's associated with it. At no point is there any quiet. Even when you start up the game, the prelude's going off. When you pause the game, the same prelude is playing in the background. When you go to the status screen, you have your own music, and when you go to, say, the city, it's got its own music, and the castle for that city has its own music. It's different every single time. And that's what makes this game so unique to me. From start to finish, the entire Final Fantasy series is nothing but a beautiful orchestral suite that creates an awesome experience. The only other games I can think of that made me feel that way were Metal Gear Solid, all of them, and Ocarina of Time, actually all Zelda games. So because of this, I'm going to give the game 10 out of 10 on music. Art. The art style in this game is phenomenal. If you just sit back and enjoy the environment, you'll realize that this is a very progressive style of artwork. The monsters, they look realistic for that time. The characters, they move so fluidly. The map is much to be desired, but the art industry gives this game a 7 out of 10. Fun! Yeah, the game's fun. Final Fantasy on the NES is fun. However, I had more fun playing the remakes, which, like I said, it's the same game. There's just some regional differences in terms of like spells, names being changed. The game's a little bit easier, even though difficulty really wasn't an issue for me. So overall fun, 8 out of 10. That leaves us with an overall of 8.4, which makes this now the officially best ranked game on this channel. Previously, that title was held by Sonic the Hedgehog, which scored 8 out of 10. If you're actually following what's going on in the channel, Final Fantasy has just taken the cake for a lot of things. Right now, it's now my #1 NES game. It's the #1 game from the 80s that I've played, and it's the #1 RPG because it's the first RPG we played on the channel. So that being said, thank you so much for watching the episode. If you get time, hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so you can see whenever I'm putting out new content. In the comment section below, tell me what you're playing and what I should be playing. I got a lot of stuff on the wall, but I'm always looking for new games to play and new experiences to be had. So that being said, thank you so much. I'm Fortefyre. Fortefyre out.